In this episode of the Motor City Hypnotist Podcast, we're going to discuss the science of depression.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to go in and believe me, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a scientist, but I can describe what goes on in the brains of people who are depressed. And we can talk about that, the physiology of it, and then also the medication that goes with it that may help that. So hopefully we'll gain some insight into something you might be dealing with. And as usual, we're giving away free stuff. Hang in there, folks. We'll be right back.
This sounds like something for the authorities in Detroit.
Well, joke's on you. I'm living to 102 and then dying, like the city of Detroit.
Guys like this antique over here out of Detroit.
Spawned in the hellfires of Motown. Take him to Detroit.
No! No! Detroit! No! No!
Stationed in Drambuie. Worse than Detroit.
We did not have, as a unit, the confidence that we felt like we needed to beat Detroit.
Let's go to Detroit. Now you're talking, brother.
I don't think so. He plays for Detroit now.
Do they have many farms in Detroit?
Detroit. It's in Michigan.
I go to school. I know where Detroit is.
Get ready for the Motor City Hypnotist, David R. Wright, originating from the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. He has hypnotized thousands of people from all over the United States. David R. Wright has been featured on news outlets all across the country and is the clinical director of an outpatient mental health and hypnosis clinic located just south of Detroit, where he helps people daily using the power of hypnosis. Welcome, the Motor City Hypnotist, David R. Wright.
What is going on, my friends? This is David Wright, the Motor City Hypnotist. We're back with another episode of the Motor City Hypnotist Podcast.
You better frickin' believe it.
You frickin' believe it. That's Matt Fox, the other voice you hear.
Yes, it is.
He's hanging out, running my sound and my audio and my video.
You sound marvelous.
He's a producer extraordinaire, let's say.
Okay. I've been called a lot better.
I'm sure, probably. But yes, we're here in the Palatial Podcast Your Voice Southfield Studios. Just finished a Man Cave Happy Hour podcast. If you guys want to check that out, we were doing blue cocktails.
Is my tongue blue?
My lips were blue. Yeah. To celebrate the Lions season so far. I mean, this weekend was a little rough, but hey.
Listen, okay, so on that real quick. These guys have been just playing out of their freaking minds.
Mm-hmm.
However, as someone who's performing at a high level, sometimes you have to get a kick in the teeth to refocus yourself.
Well, here's the whole thing too. And I even said this at home. I said, I feel like this will be a loss because you can only win so many games in a row. At some point you're going to lose.
Yeah. And if there were any games to lose, it was this one.
Yes. Yeah. And it was against a better team. And I would say too, I'd rather have the loss now and get it out of the way than in the playoffs.
Oh, amen.
I mean, I just feel like let's end the streak during the regular season. Now we can focus on the playoffs.
I want to see them win.
Playoffs.
I want to see them compete, and they have competing at such a high level we haven't seen before in decades.
Right.
And the fact that they are where they are, I'm totally proud of these guys.
Absolutely.
But you know what? I still want them to understand that you need to refocus yourselves because you know what, there are other teams out there that are just as good as you.
Well, and that shows
you need to understand that you have to refocus
and this is the whole thing with the NFL too, and for the most part there's parity, and I'm talking about the top half of teams. Of course you have your stinkers like Oakland and Carolina, and I'm trying to think of another one. I don't want to insult anybody's team, but
Cleveland.
But the whole point is that there are higher echelon teams, and any of those teams could beat any other team in that echelon at any given day.
Any given Sunday, any team could beat any team. It's just who comes to play, who comes to compete.
Well, I wouldn't say any. I mean,
no. Honestly,
you're right. You're right.
There have been total upsets.
I mean, Carolina has wins. Chicago has wins. Yes. Cleveland has wins.
It's not that they haven't won. There is no Owen something team.
Exactly. There's no winless teams.
Right. So, but these guys, these Lions players, they have put Detroit on such a big pedestal, and Detroit has put them on a higher pedestal, and we want them to win.
Absolutely.
But they that was the biggest problem that I had growing
Mhm.
up is you would say, okay, the Lions are playing, but are they going to compete?
Yeah.
And that's just that
Typically
level.
not.
Typically,
And
not.
I'm older than you are, Matt, so I've been suffering with this for many years,
that's
but
fair.
I get it.
That's fair.
I get what you're saying.
I'm
though.
totally proud, but these guys have been overcoming so many objections to because
And
of
obstacles.
the injury report, 11 players on the IR.
IR, yeah.
And it's just like that's an entire defensive.
And David Montgomery going out now for the season.
And that is a big one.
That's a
And-
big one.
But we still have Gibbs.
But see, here's the thing. Injuries are part of the
Oh,
NFL.
absolutely.
So you have to have somebody that can step up and step in. And not to make this a football podcast, but
no.
But we were enjoying the blue drinks in honor of the Lions' fantastic season so far. So check out the Man Cave Happy Hour. We get a couple of cocktails that you can make blue and gather around on Sundays watching the Lions and make your blue cocktails.
Town Club and Carousel.
There we
That's your
go.
blue.
There you go. So let me tell you, folks, where you can find me. My website is motorcityhypnotist.com. Check that out. If you're looking to book a show for grad season, I mentioned, excuse me.
You all right over there?
Got the hiccups all of a sudden.
Uh-oh, that's the blue carousel.
It could be. So grad seasons, it seems like it's far away, but it's not. It's only about 4 or 5 months away. So now's the time to book. I'm already had to turn down bookings because they were on nights that other shows were booked. So if you're looking for a prom, post-prom or grad night party, now's the time to book. I mean, really, I'll be honest, October is the time to book those because most of my bookings come in early fall for high school shows for the next spring. But so if you want a show, now's the time. MotorCityHypnotist.com. Check on shows. You can have a quote within minutes. You can sign your contract. You can have it locked in within 5 minutes. Check out the website. My social media links, Facebook and YouTube, are both Motor City Hypnotist, and Snapchat, Instagram are Motor City Hypno, HYPNO.
Yep, that's it.
And as usual, as we've done every show, going way back to number 1, and we're on show 284 right now, I think. Free hypnosis guide. It's a PDF written by me. It's not exhaustive, but it gives you some oversight and some hits on some of the major themes of what hypnosis is, what it's not. It's yours for free. Text the word hypnosis to 313-800-8510. Again, that's 313-800-8510. If you need the number later, just go to my website. That's the number on the website. Text the word hypnosis to that number. You'll have your hypnosis guide in a couple of minutes. And it will also ask you to leave a review. Now, you may not have seen a show of mine, but you're listening to the podcast, so you can leave a review on that. So however
works.
you know me, whether it's in session, whether it's a show, whether it's a podcast, leave a review for that. I would greatly appreciate it. And the big thing is wherever you're listening, whatever platform you're on, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, there's a million of them now. I don't even know, but
there's too many to
connect, link, subscribe, whatever it is on your platform, so you get the show automatically without having to look for it.
Game.
And again, the thing that would help us out so much is leaving reviews. And I know that takes some a little bit of time and it's a little bit of effort, but
I can
leave a review.
I can leave a review right now.
Yeah,
Dave.
you could. You could,
suck.
Matt. Yes. Get off my phone. Whatever. I don't know. It's crazy.
Get off my feed.
It's only crazy.
No! No! Don't shut me
Now,
up.
leaving reviews is a good thing. It helps
Yeah.
people to understand what you're about. And
Sure,
you know,
absolutely.
If you get something out of the show that you listen to, you know what? Share it. And then
absolutely.
join us 8 p.m. Eastern Standard
8
Time.
p.m. every Monday evening, Eastern Standard Time. 8-ish or so, could be a few minutes after. It's fine.
Yeah,
that's all okay.
Yeah.
But join us on Facebook Live, because we're on Facebook Live every Monday recording. You can see us as well as hear us and participate in the show. You can join in, make comments, whatever it is you want to do. Awesome. It is time, Matt.
Here we go.
How winning is done.
All righty. So we get a lot of winners of the week that are survival stories.
Yes, we
people
do.
that get into weird situations
People,
or
animals.
yeah, survival stories. From the mountains of British Columbia comes the story of a hiker who's been found alive after being lost in the woods. You want to guess how long, Matt?
14 days.
5 weeks.
Holy Nikes.
5 weeks.
A person was lost in the woods for 5 weeks.
Yes. In a remote provincial park with nighttime temperatures plunging to -4 degrees.
Where's this at?
In British Columbia.
Oh, my goodness.
Sam Banastek struck out on October 7th for a 10-day camping and fishing trip.
Okay. Hey, I'm going fishing.
Relatives said he was well prepared and packed a wool hat and gloves, a hatchet, and plenty of peanut butter. But when he failed to return to his family's home on the 17th, fear circulated among the small communities of Northeast British Columbia.
Just catching more fish.
CBS News confirmed from Sam's mother, Sandra Crocker, that he had been found on a remote access road and taken to the hospital for frostbite, exhaustion, and smoke inhalation.
Okay. That last one is kind of interesting.
I'm waiting to see where this goes.
Yeah.
In an update published on November 29th, CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Company, confirmed that he had been discharged from the hospital. The story was followed by a veteran reporter, Andrew Kurjata, and is flush with details.
Flush.
I hope it is, because I know, Matt, you and I have both said this. We have these winners of the week, and sometimes the information is very sparse.
He said flush.
Yes, it's just like we have a lot of questions after a lot of these. Hopefully our questions will be answered.
All right, go on.
Borrowing his mother's Honda dirt bike, Banastek landed at a trailhead and planned to hike about 80 kilometers to catch Arctic grayling. I have no idea what that is.
I'm not going to ask you to repeat that, so go on.
Crocker told the CBC that Banastek was feeling a bit listless after returning from an extended trip to Europe, and he felt he needed an adventure.
Fishing adventure.
That adventure, coupled with the 10 days of planned excursion, lasted 50 days. But in a picture shared with the CBC, Crocker showed her son giving a thumbs up from his hospital bed with the caption, "He complained he didn't even catch a fish." Redfern Kelly Provincial Park is a remote area 660 miles north of Vancouver and boasts exquisite Rocky Mountain scenery, but threatens visitors with unpredictable weather, wolves, bears, no potable water, and no telecommunications coverage.
Okay.
So you're in the wild.
Yeah.
Like you're out there.
What was that Leonardo DiCaprio flick?
The Revenant.
The Revenant. Yeah.
Yes,
so that's like
bear.
okay,
Yeah. According to BC Search and Rescue Association, more than 120 volunteers were involved in efforts to find Banastek, with motor vehicles and aircraft across the vast park, in part informed by Timber Bigfoot, land and environment manager and member of the Prophet River First Nation, whose territory extends to the park.
All right, so this is flush with information.
It is.
All right.
It's a lot of information. It was an amazing adventure and climate to try to survive, Bigfoot told Kurjata, adding he'd love the opportunity to debrief the lost hiker. I think it's a miracle, and I congratulate him for being such a tough person. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police were also involved in the search effort, but haven't shared many details about the case as there was no criminal element. Makes sense.
Okay.
Banastek's plans went awry when he had to retreat from either one or multiple wolves. After escaping their unfriendly jaws, he may have made camp to avoid the worst of several inches of snow that blanketed the park in October.
I'm still waiting for the smoke inhalation.
He was eventually found on an access road by surveyors who had been on a series of remote tracks for a week, marking trees around potential well sites, when they saw someone walking down the road towards them. According to Reed, they were surprised because although they'd seen a lot of ATVs and snowmobiles, it was not the place for hikers. Eileen Stevens, Sam's step-grandmother on his father's side, joked she would be buying the boy a GPS for Christmas. Sam is a guy who knows the woods. He's been raised. He's a hiker. He is a passionate fisherman, she told CBC. I don't know his story, but I'm sure it's going to be a friggin' amazing.
Oh, boy.
His uncle, Al Banastek, agreed whilst adding that he couldn't imagine the ordeal turning Sam off from the love of the great outdoors. No information on the smoke inhalation.
What the actual F,
there's got to
man?
be, and I'm just making an assumption here. There had to be a forest fire nearby.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that. I would say he's probably making his own fire and then sleeping too close.
Well,
to it.
maybe that could be
because
You're
he
right.
survived for
That
5
could be.
weeks.
You're right. That could be.
You're that cold. It's negative what, 4 degrees outside. You got to get close to a fire to
Yeah,
stay warm.
I'm sure you had to do some sort of fire. Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably where the smoke
Yeah,
inhalation
okay.
came from.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good call on that.
All right, so
yeah,
mystery
definitely.
solved. God, winner of the week.
Let me find his. I want to get his name right. Sam Benestick.
Bigfoot.
Benestick.
Benestick. And you call him Bigfoot.
I did. Well, that was one of the tribal people.
Oh. Okay.
Who lives in that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if he can do it, anybody can.
Right. Exactly.
There you go.
So definitely, Sam Benestick, definitely our winner of the week.
How winning is done.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
So, back to it.
All right, today, folks, we're talking about depression. Maybe that will fit into that story because, well, no, he's probably good now that he was rescued. So that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
But his family might have had some depression over the 50 days he was gone. But so depression, it's something that a lot of people suffer with. If there's I'll even have clients come in and they explain their symptoms and I say, well, you're depressed. And they're like, well, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard for people to comprehend exactly what that means.
Well, comprehend is one thing. They know they know it's there.
They know something's off.
However, they don't know how to verbalize what they're feeling.
Right. Exactly. So I'm going to give you a general description of what depression is.
Okay.
And then we're going to get into the science of it and why it happens.
Got it.
So there's our brain operates, and this is the best analogy I can come up with, and I probably shared it on the show before. Your brain has these electrical impulses that are fed between synapses, is what we call them. The best analogy I can use is a spark plug. In a car, there's a spark plug and there's a tiny gap and there's a spark that jumps from the one end to the other,
right?
In that tiny gap.
Got it.
The brain works the same way. You have synapses, and then you also have what we call neurotransmitters. They're brain chemicals that carry the electrical impulses from one side of the plug to the other.
Is that what like a Cymbalta would be for or something to that effect?
Yes.
Okay.
For antidepressants. Yes, for sure. So here's the problem though. Depression is also highly complex because there are degrees of depression and there are different physiological symptoms that people may have. So the challenge, especially for those in the medical community, is that we can prescribe antidepressants, but what works for one person might not work for another person. Because there's a different physiology and a different brain makeup.
And is that where the science comes in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So, and even people who have found something, let's say, Matt, you brought up Cymbalta, which is a fairly common antidepressant.
Okay. Yes.
Some people can take Cymbalta and feel great for a year or two, maybe 4, but then it stops working.
Is that because their brain chemistry gets used
becomes
to
accustomed to
it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's almost, I don't want to say immune because I don't think you can become totally immune from the medication, but it just doesn't work as effectively as it used to.
Is that where a higher dose would come into effect?
That could happen.
Okay.
Right. So long story short, researchers sometimes don't know what the root cause of the depression is. But definitely the focus is on the brain chemistry and how it works. And that's why it's so hard to kind of nail down, because somebody might have issues where they're, and I'll just throw out random numbers, like on a scale of 1 to 10, they're like 3 at a 3 depression. Some people are at a 10, which would make them suicidal or, having thoughts of harming themselves. So I mentioned neurotransmitters. So let's get into the science of really what neurotransmitters are.
Sure.
They're simply put, they're the chemical messages in your brain. That's kind of the base explanation of it.
It's how your brain works.
The nerve cells of the brain uses neurotransmitters to communicate to one another. And the messages they received, again, the assumption in the what people found out is that it plays a vital role in mood regulation.
Right. Say feelings, thoughts.
Okay. So, and I mentioned this before, the space between 2 nerve endings is called a synapsis.
I thought you were going to say Dave Matthews Band, but go on.
So when cells want to communicate with each other, neurotransmitters are packaged up and released from the end of one cell to another cell. And it can be, and here's the thing, and I don't want to get too bogged down in the verbiage because that will confuse everyone. But what happens is the neurotransmitters crosses the gap from one synapses to the other.
It's a bridge.
It's a bridge. Good call. What's not used or what's not taken up can be sucked back in for reuse. So again, I'm going to use the analogy of an automobile. Fuel gets injected into the engine, into the
cylinders.
I'm not a big mechanic, so car people, forgive me. And it sparks and ignites that pushes the piston.
Right.
The fuel that's not burned gets drained off and reused again. Same thing happens in your brain. If a neurotransmitter is carried a signal, but there's still neurotransmitter left, it gets taken back in for reusing again. So, and you'll understand this when I get there.
But
for a moment,
is that reuse when it reuses it, when your brain reuses that again, is it just as strong as it was the first time?
Yes. So I'm going to read this paragraph because it explains it pretty clearly. Any excess molecules in the space, the presynaptic cell will gather them back up, which is called a reuptake.
Okay.
And reprocess them to use in another communication. So they're reused. If they're not used in one communication, they get sucked back up and used in another one.
Somewhere else.
Could be.
So
it could be another thing that your brain is thinking
So the
of.
word that comes to my mind when you say that is that cross-contamination, because it was meant for this purpose, but it's being repurposed for something else.
No, that wouldn't work. So each type of neurotransmitter can carry a different message and plays a unique role as far as how the brain works.
We talk about cross-contamination all the time, but I'm curious if what was meant for is being reused for something else is what it was meant for.
Almost, let's go back to the car analogy because again, if the fuel isn't totally
going
burned
to a different
off,
piston,
it gets reused and it's just like new fuel.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So we mentioned neurotransmitters. There are 3 neurotransmitters that are often implicated in the signs of depression.
Okay.
Dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin.
Endorphins aren't in there?
These are simply neurotransmitters.
Okay.
On the way to communicate your brain to communicate signals.
I'm not a professional. Go
Nope,
on.
you're all good. There are other transmitters, including glutamate, which is called I don't want to get off on a sidetrack here, but glutamate is one of the major neurotransmitters that ketamine affects.
Ooh.
And we talked about ketamine a couple of episodes ago.
Yes, we did. Okay.
So with ketamine, it kind of opens up the glutamate neurotransmitters to make it more active.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Go on.
So all of these neurotransmitters, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, glutamate, there's still, there's so much research out there that's going on, but these transmitters are definitely contributors to diseases like Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia, and sleep disorders. So if they're not working correctly, you can have a whole host of other side effects.
So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Folks that have that wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, could that be a sign that they're having issues with their neurotransmitters? Just keep them asleep.
It could be. It could be. And I would lean more towards not just insomnia by itself, but if you're bipolar or manic depressive, same thing, just 2 different terms. That could cause your brain to go into a manic state where it's very difficult. In fact, I've had clients who are in manic states that would go a week without sleeping.
Oof.
Yeah. Because the brain's on overdrive. It's just running and there's no way.
It can't shut itself off. Yeah.
And that's why people, again, with bipolar and manic phases, they participate in behaviors that are questionable: shoplifting, promiscuity, drug use, alcohol use, because the brain is just, it's looking for stimulation.
And what astounds me sometimes about that is that the individual that has those episodes don't remember that they had those episodes.
Well, sometimes they kind of, and here's what I've found and it's not an intentional rationalization, but they will rationalize. Like, I've had I had a specific client many years ago who, when she was in a manic phase, her mania caused her to shoplift. And she'd been arrested numerous times for it. And every time she would say, I wasn't stealing anything. But she was.
She was.
So there was some denial in there as well.
The brain itself is a mystery. And here we are with these computers in our brains that we use a fractional percentage of, you know, the overall. Like you've seen the movie Lucy.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And that is one of my more favorite watches if I'm bored, right? Just because of the whole, you know, what she goes through and the drug that she takes, and she's using 100% of her brain in what she does. But just the explanation that Morgan Freeman does at the beginning.
Yes.
That is, it's extraordinary writing. It really is.
It is. It is really good. So what we're going to talk about, folks, is, and we're going to come back for part 2 of this because there's so much information here and I don't want to like jam it all in.
Okay.
But we're going to come back next episode and we're going to talk about the specific neurotransmitters and how they vary and how that could affect you. So for those of you on Facebook Live, stay here. We're going to be doing another episode. Those of you on whatever platform you're on, skip ahead to the next episode. If it's not there, it'll be there Tuesday or Thursday.
Perfect.
So yeah, like I said, I want to make sure we give this the time it deserves, and I don't want to overwhelm people.
There might be a 3rd or 4th episode about this.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see where we get to. Alrighty, folks, we're going to be back with the Science of Depression Part 2 in just a moment. In the meantime, change your thinking, change your life. Oh, before we go, Matt just reminded me somebody needs a home.
Yes, they do. Who is it?
Detroit Dog Rescue Rooster needs a home.
I'm envisioning Rooster is got to be some type of a terrier.
Oh, you're close, Matt. It might be, because unfortunately, when I printed this, the breed got chopped out. It's a male, 30 pounds, dog friendly, kid friendly. Yes. Activity level high. Rooster.
Oh, look at that. I was very close.
You were.
Very close. Look at that. Let's see. Yeah, he's got a lot of fun color.
Look at he's right next to Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
This would be a perfect time to get your kids a dog.
I love it.
Rooster needs a home.
Love it.
DetroitDogRescue.com/adopt. He is ready to go.
Excellent.
All righty, folks. So we'll be right back. Those of you on Facebook Live, stay where you are. Change your thinking, change your life. Laugh hard, run fast, be kind. We'll see you next time. In this episode of the Motor...
Wait, hold on a second.
I thought you were ready.
I just did this. I didn't say this.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I didn't point.
A finger gun or
I didn't
a point?
Point.
I don't know.
I said,
It's
hold
either
on. Wow, you're quick on the trigger, buddy.
I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
In this episode of the Motor City Hypnotist Podcast, we are finishing up. Hopefully, we'll see. This is the Science of Depression Part 2. We might need a Part 3. We'll see. But we're talking about what happens physiologically in your brain when you're depressed. We're talking about neurotransmitters and brain activity and synapses. And I know that all sounds very overwhelming, but we'll break it down to a very dumb level because that's what I would need. I'm just saying. And stick around. We're giving away free stuff. Hang in there, folks. We'll be right back.
This sounds like something for the authorities in Detroit.
Well, joke's on you. I'm living to 102 and then dying, like the city of Detroit.
Guys like this antique over here out of Detroit.
Spawned in the hellfires of Motown. Taken to Detroit.
No! No! Detroit! No! No!
Stationed in Drambuie. Worse than Detroit.
We did not have, as a unit, the confidence that we felt like we needed to beat Detroit.
Let's go to Detroit. Now you're talking, brother.
I don't think so. He plays for Detroit now.
Do they have many farms in Detroit?
Detroit to Michigan.
I go to school. I know where Detroit is.
Get ready for the Motor City hypnotist, David R. Wright, originating from the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. He has hypnotized thousands of people from all over the United States. David R. Wright has been featured on news outlets all across the country and is the clinical director of an outpatient mental health and hypnosis clinic located just south of Detroit, where he helps people daily using the power of hypnosis. Welcome, the Motor City hypnotist, David R. Wright.
What is going on, my friends? It is David Wright, the Motor City Hypnotist, and we're back with another episode of the Motor City Hypnotist podcast.
I am so excited for part 2.
Absolutely. That is Matt Fox, the other voice you hear.
That it is.
We're here in the Podcast Your Voice, Southfield Studios.
Palatial.
It is palatial. It is. We got a full bar. We got a big table. We got snacks and
booze.
What more can you ask for on a Monday night?
Thanks to Jamie for all the booze.
Absolutely. Jamie's stocking the place up.
He's cleaning up from the man cave still.
He's booze Santa. So let me tell you, folks, where you can find me. My website is motorcityhypnotist.com. As I've said the last few episodes, now's the time to book your shows for grad nights or post-prom parties because they're already booking.
Yes.
I've already had to turn a couple of people away because it's on the same date as another party that's already booked. So
man,
now's the time to do it. motorcityhypnotist.com/shows. You can book, you can get an estimate and book online within minutes and you're locked in. So check that out if you need a hypnotist for your event. My website is motorcityhypnotist.com.
Right.
As I said, my Facebook and YouTube are both Motor City Hypnotist, and on Snapchat and Instagram, which are Motor City Hypno, HYPNO. And as we've done every episode going back to number 1, get your free hypnosis guide. Text the word hypnosis to 313-800-8510. And again, that number is 313-800-8510. If you forget that, or you maybe, I don't know, maybe you draw a mind blank or something, just go to the website. It's the same number that's there. Text the word hypnosis to that number. You'll have your free hypnosis guide within minutes. It will also ask you to leave a review. Now, you haven't seen my show, and that's what the message will say, but you can review the podcast. So that would be greatly appreciated if you use that link and leave a review on the podcast itself. The biggest thing, wherever you're listening, leave a review.
Yeah.
I know that's, most people don't do that. I'm guilty of this as well. I've gone to places that I've loved and I haven't left a review, but reviews help. It helps other people get a hold or view us or see us, and more people will listen. So wherever you're listening, leave a review. That would be greatly appreciated. All righty. It is time.
Oh my God. Here we go.
For winner of the week.
How winning is done.
All right. Well, this story, Matt, it involves a donkey and a stable just in time for Christmas time.
Okay, wait a minute. Winner of the week,
Yeah.
donkey and a stable.
Donkey and a stable.
Do we have any wise men with the donkey?
Well, no, but we have some British travelers.
Okay,
who will take the place of the wise men.
Go on.
Yes. In a delightful and kind of Christmas story, a pair of British travelers found room at the inn for a dying donkey.
What the heck? Okay.
Who then gave birth to a foal after receiving treatment.
What's the foal's name?
I don't know yet.
It's Jesus. Come on.
Let's see. Sue and Andy Toach were due to escape the cold of England with a winter vacation out in Boa Vista, Cape Verde. As it happened, Sue spotted a post on their hotel's Facebook page about a dying donkey found stranded on the beach.
Okay.
Animal lovers both, the Toaches purchased some supplies to take a bid to save the skeletal and sick donkey named Belaroo.
Had the donkey already given birth when
No.
they found him? Okay.
No.
So the donkey's
she had
already
not.
skeletal and
Yes.
and
Super sick.
oh my goodness.
Yes.
Go on. Yeah.
Yeah. Skeletal and sick donkey named Bella Rue from certain death. On arrival, Sue teamed up with the other hotel guests and local tour guides to find a veterinarian who might be able to treat her.
Good.
They managed to find a home for her at a local riding center, and just days later, Bella gave birth in the stable when nobody had even known she was pregnant.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, how are you going to know with the donkey?
It's already, the donkey is already looking like it's ready to go.
Sure.
Yeah.
When Bella was found, she was very emaciated. Her hips and ribs were visible. Her coat was matted, and she was covered in parasites.
Poor girl.
Sue told the British media outlet SWNS, "When I got there, I was grooming her twice a day and would sit and talk to her after I gave her twice daily medication."
Who's a good ass?
Who's a good donkey? The local tour guides came back to us the next day and said they had found a man, Sydney, who could take Bella. She said arrangements were made, and once in the stable, it didn't take long for Bella to get settled in her new temporary home. She even made friends with one of the horses who had been a fellow rescue. Sue had suspected Bella might be pregnant, but vets weren't able to bring her in to be scanned, so nobody knew for sure. Now fast recovering Bella and her surprise son named Spaghetti live happily in their new home. I left before I got to meet Spaghetti, but we've promised to go back. We want Bella and Spaghetti to have a fantastic life there, said the inspired Sue, who, along with the other guests, have started a GoFundMe to raise money for the rest of Bella's treatment. And Sue has vowed to return next year so she can see Bella again and meet Spaghetti for the first time. Now we're hoping to raise money to help Sydney with their care and veterinary bills so we can still help from back at home. Sydney said he might be able to take more rescues on too, so we're hoping the money can go towards that as well. Question.
Those of you on Facebook Live, I've been putting my hand up for the past 30
I know.
seconds.
I was in the article.
You're getting through it.
Yeah.
Spaghetti?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know who named the donkey.
Spaghetti?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. Couldn't you name him Gus or I don't know.
Farfel? Fettuccine?
Donkey. Just call him Donkey.
Miracle. Come on.
Hello, Donkey.
Spaghetti.
Yeah, that's the name.
All right.
So anyway,
good for
full
that.
Story. Rescued
Yay.
the donkey who gave birth. It's got a full
Save the
Spaghetti.
asses. Save the asses.
That is our winner of the week.
That's how winning is done.
We got all kinds of stories with the winner of the week. We got dogs, we got cats, we got donkeys, we got whales.
Yeah.
We got I'm trying to think what else we've had.
So back to it.
You did see that guy that got slapped in the face for commenting on the lady's donkey, right?
No.
Yeah, the lady walked by with a donkey and goes, "Hey, nice ass."
Oh boy.
Oh, good for you. Like this in the background. What the fuck is it with you?
But I'm bummed.
But I'm bummed.
So yeah, that's what happens. All right.
So, all right, folks, we're talking about depression, the science of depression, because a lot of people, this is probably one of the most common diagnosed mental illnesses along with anxiety. And typically depression and anxiety go together because if you're depressed, you become anxious. If you're anxious, you become depressed.
Right.
It's kind of like the cyclical thing.
It's like it's a roller coaster.
It is.
And you're up, you're down.
Yep.
You're up, you're down.
So if you listen to the last episode, and if you have not listened to that, jump back one because it'll get you kind of set up because we're talking about specific neurotransmitters to start this episode. So again, the first one and the one we're probably all familiar with is dopamine.
Yes.
Dopamine is a neurotransmitter and it creates positive feelings associated with reward or a reinforcement of something. And it pushes us to continue whatever we're doing because of that good feeling.
What are the contents of dopamine? What's the makeup of dopamine itself? Is that where the endorphins and everything, or is it?
Yeah, dopamine would probably create the endorphins, the feel good feeling that you have.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify because in the last episode I said endorphins. You're like, no, these are, and I just want to see where the endorphins work into this because that is the feel good.
Yes, that's a feel good neurotransmitter.
Okay.
So With dopamine, here's what happens though. Dopamine is believed to play vital roles in conditions that affect the brain, like Parkinson's or schizophrenia.
Oh, okay.
So an imbalance of dopamine could result in these types of diseases. There's also evidence that shows that reduced dopamine levels contributes to depression because you have less of that feel-good neurotransmitter going on. So a lot of times with people with depression, medication is designed to kind of bolster that dopamine level in the brain.
Got it.
The next neurotransmitter is norepinephrine. So norepinephrine is a little bit different. It's not a feel-good, but it's a neurotransmitter, but it's also a hormone. And this specific neurotransmitter is totally responsible for the fight or flight response.
Okay.
So when somebody's they're in danger or somebody's threatened, that fight or flight response kicks in, and that's along with the adrenaline. That's where that adrenaline kicks in. So it helps send the messages from one nerve cell to the next. So back in the 1960s, there was a scientist named Joseph Schildkraut.
Okay.
It's a very difficult name. I wasn't going to spell it for you.
Schildkraut.
So he suggested that norepinephrine was the brain chemical for interest in people with depression. And that his hypothesis was that there was a lack of norepinephrine in people with depression.
That was back in the 60s.
Back in the 60s. Okay. Yeah. And he proposed that depression occurs when there's too little norepinephrine in the circuits. Alternatively, and we mentioned this maybe in last episode, mania results when there's too much neurotransmitter in the brain.
Yes. It can't shut itself off.
Right. So there's definitely evidence that supports the hypothesis. It's hard to categorize. It's hard to study because it's so subjective, let's say, because there's not really a test to do. We can't go in your brain and test the level of neurotransmitters.
No.
So we have to go by symptoms, and that's where the symptomology leads us to a diagnosis.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yep. So another is called serotonin.
Oh,
we've probably all heard of that. Again, this serotonin is also a feel-good chemical. It helps regulate mood, and it has a number of different jobs in your body, from your gut to blood clotting to sexual functions.
Okay, serotonin. A lot of people, and pardon me if I really misstep here, but vitamin D deficiencies.
Yep.
Lack of sun.
Yep.
That's part of serotonin.
I don't know. I have to be honest.
Okay.
I don't know that for sure.
You get the the sunlight, and you absorb the vitamin D from the sun.
Right.
That's where I think serotonin's coming in, because you have to have that. You have a vitamin D deficiency from that lack of light, lack of sun. So
and there could, and you're right.
So
that could
many
lead into that.
Yes,
there's so many things that connect to this as well. So really, with serotonin, serotonin is kind of taken, I guess, center stage, for lack of a better term, as far as depression goes over the past 20, 30 years, because I shouldn't say most. Some antidepressants are things like Prozac are called SSRIs,
which stands for,
and that is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors.
Okay.
So we talked about last episode when somebody has in their brain synapses, it sends a signal, and then there's chemical left over to be used again. With SSRIs, they leave that in play so it doesn't get sucked back up. And I know I'm being very simplistic with this.
You're fine.
But just to kind of give everybody the understanding of it. So again, it would be kind of like back to the analogy of an automobile. The fuel would stay there for use immediately rather than getting taken back up and then reprocessed. Okay. So researchers have looked into serotonin's role in mood disorders for 30, 40 years. It's been a long time. So there are newer antidepressants, which are a little bit different. They don't act on specifically on the serotonin reuptake, which is SSRIs. That's what they do. They prevent these chemicals from being uptaken so they can be used immediately.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It's kind of like you don't want to put it into storage. You want to use it right now. Again, that's very simplistic, but that's the best.
And there's no backup.
thing.
And there's no backup.
There's no backup, really. Yes. So there are some newer antidepressants called SNRIs, which are serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors.
My goodness.
So they focus on two different neurotransmitters. Things like Effexor is a good example that targets both of those. They target serotonin and norepinephrine, and also tricyclic antidepressants, TCAs, also affect both norepinephrine and serotonin.
Goodness.
So the problem with these, specifically with SNRIs or TCAs, is that the side effects are they can be fairly serious and not necessarily life-threatening, but dry mouth, blurry vision, constipation, urinary issues.
Sign me up.
Just saying. So the good thing is SSRIs, which is the one before that, they don't affect histamine. They don't have the same side effects or any cardiovascular issues.
See, okay, so Dave, you brought up side effects, and that's the thing that a lot of folks are afraid of when it comes to taking taking medication is the side effects. You know, when you see a commercial on television today, it'll ramble through all of the different side effects.
And they have to do that by law.
By law,
it's required because these are possible side effects of a medication. And even in
the
antidepressants,
the lists are getting longer, Dave.
No, they are. But even with antidepressants, something like Prozac or something like Cymbalta or something like Zoloft, one of the listed side effects on all of those medications
is anal
is
leakage.
Suicidal thoughts.
Anal leakage? What?
No. What? What in places are you talking about?
No, suicidal thoughts.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
But suicidal thoughts is like, okay, I'm taking a medication to move away from such things.
And that is kind of the duality of a lot of these antidepressant medications that there is a possibility it could make symptoms worse. Now that's a rarity. And again, they have to list those because it has been documented in the past.
But as you stated in the episode before, everybody's brain chemistry is different.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Yes, they do have to list out all those things.
Well, and I will give you full disclosure, as a therapist working for 32 years, and we have a psychiatrist on staff, we refer people to the psychiatrist who we feel like could benefit from medication.
Fair.
But here's the thing, and I say to clients, it may take a good few months, maybe 6 months, maybe a year to get to the right place where you need to be.
See, and I almost want to disagree with that. In a perfect world,
right,
a couple of months, maybe
Sure.
a year, but there are people that have been trying to figure this out for a much longer time.
You're right. And here's what happens, because most antidepressants, the way they work is there's not an immediate effect. It's not like taking a Tylenol and you feel pain relief in an hour.
Right. There never is an immediate effect.
With depression medication, it has to build up into your system. So most cases, when you try a new medication, we want to give it a month to see how it's working.
Get it absorbed into the bloodstream, get it into your brain. And
again, it has to level up, and you can't do that in a week or even 2 weeks.
And that's the other part of this is like, okay, so this isn't working. Now we're going to try something different. Now you have to wean off what you've been taking for the last 6 months
and start something new.
And start something new. So now your body has to start the
Now I
process
will say in
all
general,
over again.
let's say that you're taking something like, as long as you're in the same class of medication. But here's the thing.
We kind of got off topic, but go on.
No, that's okay. Different types of antidepressants. There are two major classes: the SSRIs and the MHO inhibitors.
Okay,
we're not going to get into that, but typically, if you tried something and it failed, we would go to the other side, the
MHO.
Go to the other class to see if that might work for your brain chemistry and your physiology.
Fair.
But again, that could take a couple months because you got to try something. If it doesn't work, then we have to, like you said, sometimes if it's in the same class, we can just kind of replace it. But you're right. Sometimes you have to wean off and start again.
It's not you don't have, you have to wean off and move on to the next. And there's a process, and you have to be patient with that process.
Well, and here's the whole thing. And I say to clients, I'm like, listen, if I told you in 2 months you're going to feel 80% better, would you commit to that? I will
put my best foot forward.
There we go. And that's really the process with psychiatry and medication, is that there's so many medications and we don't know what's going to work for each individual person.
But the patient has to want to.
Well, that's the whole thing too, because I have many examples of patients who are like, I don't want to take medication. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I understand that. But what's your option?
Right.
To stay where you're at
or
try something different. And here's my also the thing is medication is never a solution. And I've said this to clients.
You've said this on the show
hundreds of times.
Many times you've said that.
Medication is a tool to get you where you want to be. Now, I have clients who've taken antidepressants for a year, 2 years, longer, and have been able to wean off and be okay. Some people have been on it their whole lives.
The end game in my mind, because I'm a person that I don't take a lot of medication.
Right. Yep.
You know, if heartburn and what have you, that's about the extent of it.
Right.
But the end game in my mind, in my uneducated mind, I should say, is you don't want to be on a medication forever. And
I mean, ideally you don't. You're right. Some people will need that forever. People who have schizophrenia, bipolar disorder.
And I 100% agree with that. But if you're dealing with a bout of depression, this is a stopgap.
It is, especially for people who are depressed, who are situationally depressed. And there's a little bit different because let's say you lost a loved one, or you lost your job, or you have some other external stressors that are making you depressed. Yes, definitely medication can get you through that period of time.
Agreed, 100%.
Yep. And that's different than what we call chemical depression, which is that imbalance of neurotransmitters in the brain.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's what we're going to do, folks, because we're out of time today. We're going to do part 3.
I love part 3.
And we're going to talk about, and I'm just going to tease this a little bit, how can you stimulate neurotransmitters in the brain? How can you possibly avoid having to take medication?
So we actually had Ralph. He said, you know,
Ralph,
I know that there is a need in everyone's life for a certain level of anxiety. Anxiety keeps us from running into traffic and jumping into lions' dens at the zoo.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
No, and here's, well, this tracks more to anxiety, because you have to have some level of anxiety or you wouldn't be safe. Like I said, if you're just as Ralph said, if you're going to cross Telegraph Road, which is 8 lanes of traffic, you better be a little bit anxious because it keeps you safe.
You better have your head on a swivel.
Right. Yeah.
But then he asked the question. Oh, that was good. He asked the question, how do you know how much of those chemicals does one need?
Well, see, that's the whole testing phase.
Is that the psychiatrist
that's the
doing
whole psychiatrist thing? Because every medication, I'll give you a good example. Let's say somebody has a mood disorder. So a good medication for mood disorders would be something like Lamictal. It's a mood stabilizer. So there's always a starting dose of every medication. And every medication is different. I can speak on Lamictal just because I have somebody who's fresh with that.
Okay.
0.25 is the 0.25 milligrams a day.
That's the starting dose.
That's the starting dose.
Right.
Some people do fine on that, and it never goes any higher. Other people, it gets bumped to 50, gets bumped to 75, gets bumped to 100. So yes, there are different dosages based on what you're dealing with, and that your psychiatrist will evaluate that. That's why typically when a psychiatrist will prescribe medication for the first time, they want to see you in a month, not 6 months. They want to see you in a month because they want to review, how is this working?
On the lowest dose.
On the lowest dose. And then they know, okay, it's not working. You felt a little bit of relief. We're going to bump that up a little bit. or it hasn't worked at all. Okay, now we need to look at something different.
Or I'm having side effects from the lowest
or side
dose.
effects.
Right.
Exactly. Now there is a so as far as side effects goes, and this again, Matt, you brought this up. A lot of people have concerns about side effects of medication. There is a test that you can do, a blood test that will determine what class of medications you're more likely to have side effects from.
Okay.
The name's escaping me right now. I don't know why. I've told clients about this hundreds of times.
It's the booze.
But yeah, it could be, yeah. But the point being is that you can get a blood test done ahead of time to say this class might be less likely to give you side effects than this class of medication.
And that's what blood tests are for.
Right. So definitely if you're worried about side effects, that is definitely something I would recommend.
All right.
And your psychiatrist will know about this. If you ask him about it, he'll know.
So I will remember every part of this conversation
No, you won't.
going into episode 3 of our topic.
I'm listening to you no more.
No, honestly, Ralph, thank you for chiming in there in your question.
Ralph, I'm going to meet Ralph in a minute. That's why I meet Ralph to watch a football game with.
Oh, fair enough.
My buddy Ralph.
All right. Well, tell him we said hi.
Shout out, Ralph.
All right.
Get the garlic knots ready.
All right. Here we go.
I'll be there in a half hour.
All right. I got to see how Brock Bowers is doing tonight. So.
Oh, dude. Oh, fantasy sidebar. Lost in one league in the playoffs. Lost in one league, won in the other league.
All right. Yeah. I had a week 1 bye in my fantasy league.
Nice. So you won the division or something.
Yes,
like
I did.
That. Yes,
and
nice.
So this is the week 2 of our playoffs.
Okay, I'm only in week 1 of the playoffs.
I need 16 more points.
Who do you have?
Brock Bowers. But every other week, 30 points, 8 points. 30 points, 8 points.
Yeah.
This is the 30-point week, so I got my fingers crossed.
We hope so.
Come on, Brock.
Yeah.
Who's our Detroit dog rescue?
Oh yes, let's do that before we leave.
Yeah.
Chip needs a home.
All right, Chip. Oh, look at that.
Look at Chip.
I like that bandana. He's got a very Santa bandana.
Chip is a cockapoo. When I was a kid.
What did you call me?
A cockapoo.
All right.
Watch your face.
Coffee makes me a mite nervous when I drink.
Wrong one. It's all good.
I don't know what we're yelling about.
Yeah, Chip needs a home.
There you go.
Chip. So he's a cockapoo. When I was a kid, when I was probably 4, my parents brought a dog home for my sister's birthday. She was 14 at the time. And the dog we had was a cockapoo. We grew up with her. She was she wasn't. She was a little asshole is what she was. But with us, she was fine. She hated if a stranger came in, do not let him near her.
Okay.
She would attack. But for us, we loved her. So anyway, Chip is a cockapoo. He's male, 20 pounds, dog friendly. Yes. Kid friendly. Yes. Over 8. Activity level is medium.
All right. Cockapoos typically are. Yeah.
Chip is ready. He needs a home.
Oh, he's cute.
I know.
He's got very clean teeth.
He does.
Yes.
Very white. DetroitDogRescue.com/adopt. Chip needs a home. Go get him.
Yes, please.
All righty, folks. We're going to be back next episode with the Science of Depression Part 3. In the meantime, change your thinking, change your life, laugh hard, run fast, be kind. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.